Welcome back, everyone, to Blogcast Podcast. As always, we have an amazing guest. Today with us is Sebastian Agren. He is the Chief Operating Officer and a co-founder of Tribe. Tribe is one of the leading tokenization real-world asset companies in the UAE and the region. You're going to love this show. You're going to learn what does it mean to build and have a tribe. What does it mean to be a regulated company, a regulated tribe? What's happening in the real-world ecosystem in the tokenization space in the country here, in the UAE and in the region. You're going to love this one. My name is Anton Golub. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Demetrios Zamboglou. Enjoy the show, have a blast, and enjoy.
And the underlying reason for even having the conversation in the first place is it's not necessarily the most accessible asset class to most people simply because of the price barrier. Now, there are other barriers too, which I'm sure we can dig into today, but price barrier is very real when you talk about buying property, right? For the vast majority of people, including people living in Dubai. Dubai, in terms of if you talk only about the virtual asset, for us, real estate or asset reference, virtual asset as VARA would call it, definitely the gold standard still, for sure at the forefront. The structures and the mechanisms that exist within the existing rulebooks today are, I would say, ahead of pretty much every other region that we have looked at. Secondary market and liquidity is like the elephant in the room in tokenization generally. We're enabling distribution, and people confuse distribution with actual liquidity. First of all, you need structure to enable the sale and the purchase of secondary tokens in this instance. The crowdfunding structures, they simply don't have the legal and the technical capabilities to enable real-time secondary trading. The stats speaks for themselves. 75% of people, residents in Dubai currently today, do not own real estate in Dubai. Big number.
Wow.
So that's I would say, the first trace of what became Tribe today. The reason I can say this with utmost confidence is that we actually implemented this about 6 months into Tribe's journey. So we have first-hand data, if you will, of the before and after, and it's like not comparable. It's incredible.
Welcome, Sebastian, to the show. It's really great to have you. And also, just to mention for the audience, I had the pleasure to being on your podcast, a week before, right? Yeah, actually. So now we had to return the favor. So it's great to have you. And I'm sure we're going to have a blast because we're going to talk definitely one of my favorite topics, which is tokenization and real-world assets. You're a pioneer, you're a leader in the UAE and region and globally. So really excited to have you. Demetrios, right? Yeah.
Yes, thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
And let's talk about RWAs.
Yes.
Amazing. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And maybe to kick it off very strong, when we met for the first time and when I met your team, really what stuck about you and your team is actually the name to me personally. It's Tribe, right? And I remember you told, we chatted, we had a very good conversation, you and I were actually separately a panel, so this is even a longer story. You are moderating it and, or fireside chat, you were moderating it. And I was thinking about Tribe, and I went to check your website, what do you do? And I kind of felt that the community is a big part of what you are, what you do, and how you are building your business. So can you tell us a little bit more about how this Tribe came about, how important community is for you, and maybe for people to learn, can they even become part of Tribe, your community? How does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe if you have job openings as well.
Oh yeah, this is let's cover all 5 topics.
Yeah. Know that you guys have the right audience for recruitment, so appreciate that. You hit the nail on the head. The clue is in the name, right? Tribe. It speaks for itself, and the origin story, if you really want to go back, right? I would say that the first traces of our origin story are conversations between a few of the co-founders. Actually, some years ago when we spoke about the concept of really community investing, right? How do you bring a group of people together to go and invest, in this case, into real estate? And the underlying reason for even having the conversation in the first place is it's not necessarily the most accessible asset class to most people simply because of the price barrier. Now, there are other barriers too, which I'm sure we can dig into today, but price barrier is very real when you talk about buying property, right? For the vast majority of people, including people living in Dubai. The stats speaks for themselves. 75% of people, residents in Dubai currently today, do not own real estate in Dubai. Okay. Big number.
Wow.
So that's I would say, the first trace of what became Tribe today, right? If we fast forward to when it actually became a reality and why the name tribe, how important is community. If you think about our internal tribe, so the tribe that is our co-founders, our shareholders, our team, etc., it is what we put first, i.e. people. People is the number one thing for us. We spend extreme amount of time with each other, as I'm sure you do as well within your own businesses and whatnot. And if you're not happy to spend time with these people outside of the professional hours, tribe aside or business aside, I think it's the wrong tribe to have around you, right? And that is true, right? We spend significant amounts of time together. We have a lot of fun together because you have to. It's bloody difficult to build businesses. And if you can't have fun doing it, then it gets even harder, right? The community aspect of tribe as a business, or let's call them the external tribes, if you will. We have a number of them, right? The first one is obviously any external hypothetical customer, prospect customers to us. There's various kinds of tribes we will interact with, from your retail audience to qualified investors to institutionals. They are very different natures. They're very different tribes, and we have to build the way we interact with those communities very differently. But again, people first. It is core to how we operate. And ultimately, and to finish on this point, yes, we're a technology company. Yes, right. It's a product-led business servicing a specific industry that is real estate. Yeah. But fundamentally, our job is to service two types of individuals. It is the asset owning or selling side, and it is the investor side, right? That is the purpose of our business, and then enabling some sort of relationship and transaction between the two of them. So community is fundamental to even the core business model.
But for you, tribe is community, or is people with same characteristics, or is it defined as colleagues that want to spend time with you after hours? So how do you define tribe?
So internally, tribe for sure is in the latter. Internally, it's a community effort, right? We put people first, not on paper, but in way of action, right? The way we operate, the way we prioritize internally is making sure that the people come before the business, but never at the expense of the business, right? If you cannot do that, at some point, it becomes untenable, right? If you think about building a large-scale business long-term, it will require a serious amount of personal commitment by a number of people over a long period of time, and you cannot continuously sacrifice the people and their external lives. Like we work and build to live. We don't live to work and build.
Good. So in my head, I still believe that the tribe is the people that will follow the vision and the mission. So if the people are not in line, or they do not believe the mission and the vision, that whatever they do, they cannot be part of this kind of
tribe. Sure. Absolutely. No, 100%. I mean, core to working for us anyway, I think for every company, certainly if you're early stage, you're fighting an uphill battle from day one, right? And you do that for a very long time, right? Pushing that boulder uphill, and the risk and the uncertainty and all of that comes with early stage building. And it's make no bones about it, it's extremely difficult, right? No matter what business you build, it's very difficult. And when you build a regulated business in a brand new space that has largely no precedent, it's even harder, right? So belief on an individual level and buy-in on an individual level in where we're trying to get to and what we're trying to do, 100%.
Maybe to continue in that direction is you emphasized how important it is to take care of your tribe, right? Both internally, externally, right? And when you are actually bringing these people together, kind of the glue that keeps them together is trust, right? Because you're bringing a lot of different stakeholders together, and they need to trust each other and you as well as an organization. And when I was reflecting on you as a company, one of the key aspects that kind of for me meant that trust was actually that you're a regulated company. So you're regulated by one of the most prestigious, most trusted regulator, which is VARA here in Dubai. So can you tell us a bit more like how that journey of getting a license was part of the vision of Tribe, and also what it means actually for your tribe, for your community, and for your investors to have such a strong license? And maybe tell us what licenses you have so people know.
Yeah, absolutely. So we set out to purpose build, right? Which is basic. And as far as I'm aware, perhaps still to date, we are probably maybe the only or one of the few that have started from zero and purpose built for the framework, the regulatory framework that we are intending to operate within, which meant that from day one, we could build with the regulatory framework and the compliance element of that, or elements, there are many, at the very core of how we build product, operational processes, etc., right? Why does that matter? When you try to retrofit, it is very complicated, right? It is already complicated building in a regulated space, but if you have an existing operational business that you then try to pivot or retrofit into a new regulatory framework, it will be even harder, right? On top of that, then you have people that are perhaps used to working or behaving and operating in a specific way. So our journey, I think, like probably most of the founding operators that I have the pleasure of interacting with, which are building or have built inside VARA or other jurisdictions here in the UAE, it's a tricky journey, right? I'm not gonna lie, it takes a lot of brain power. It takes a lot of time and effort to wrap your head around how to build and obviously then eventually operate such a business. The mistake that we did not make, and I'm very happy about it, was I see a lot of people underestimating the importance to take it seriously, quite frankly, right? It's a bit of a throwaway. We'll pay an external party perhaps to help us in a consulting capacity or whatever, and they'll figure out whatever the requirements are, policies, operational, standard operating procedures, yada, 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 on paper. But the reality is that one day you have to operationalize this, right? One day you have to actually run this company in the way that you've told the regulators in your licenses that you are going to operate, right? If you don't, well, external auditors and the reporting requirements are going to come down pretty hard on you. So for us, we went through the first stages of the VAR process extremely quickly, right? We did this thanks to building from zero, thanks to taking it very seriously from day one and having a degree of experience before building and operating in regulated spaces, right? We are today a broker-dealer, and the future may hold other licenses. Let's see. It depends on the business requirements and the ecosystem that we operate within. But I think fundamentally, there's only maybe 2 VARA licenses for us that would make sense in the future, depending on the product development, and that would be going in the exchange directions or the issuance directions. But we're not necessarily in a rush for either of those.
Okay. And who decides for these licenses?
Ultimately, would be the business needs and the ecosystem. Real estate tokenization it's been a hot topic for a while, right? Yeah. Not just now, but it's been going on in multiple jurisdictions for a number of years. I think only now it's becoming truly attempted to execute it on in the real world. Like people are actually trying to do things on the ground and making it happen. That matters in terms of what licenses we would or wouldn't pursue, because it's such a nascent ecosystem that we are not yet sure. We can see signs of how it's going to evolve from a distribution, demand, and a supply side. And we can have an hypothesis of this license may make sense because of X, Y, Z. But the reality is it's so early days that it's quite hard still to say definitively, this is where we're going to be in 12 months, right?
Sebastian, just to ask a question and to first give the context to the audience, when we were preparing for the podcast, we had such a great time, kind of warming up, and, we were looking at this beautiful building where we are, and I kind of told you, like, Sebastian, how about we tokenize that? And I liked how you said, we can definitely do that. It's, it's easy,
Yeah.
And the reason why I'm asking you, like, what does it entail to actually tokenize, let's say, even a whole building, is because maybe a lot of people who are listening to us on the podcast, they're wondering, like, how does it actually work? So can you, as an expert, maybe guide us in a short explanation? Yeah. What would it take actually to tokenize like a beautiful building like we are here today? Like, how would the process works, like, from your experience?
Yeah, for sure. And this is gonna sound a bit ridiculous, but transparent first. Tribe hasn't even operationally gone to market, and there's only ever been 10 properties in Dubai based on the pilot program tokenized last year in a specific model. And when we talk about tokenization generally, especially with an audience like the one that you have on your podcast, they usually refer to that in their mind when they think about tokenization. They think about this pilot program. So what I will preface this with is that there are more than one legal structuring, a legal model that you could hypothetically tokenize assets in, and which one is the right or wrong one is partially down to what are you trying to tokenize, right? What is the kind of assets, the structure of that asset, the location of that asset, and so on and so forth. So if I was to generalize, and this is exactly what I'm going to do, the first thing that you need is the asset itself needs to be legally held in one way or another, right? There needs to be something or someone that owns the asset, right? And it needs to be able to be proven, right? I need to have some sort of legal proof that the counterparty that's owning it have a claim to that asset ideally. Now that can be achieved in many ways. The pilot program here last year used that by tokenizing at a title deed level, right?
Okay.
You got a fractional title deed issued. Say you invested 3% of the asset. Your title deed will say that you own XYZ number of tokens against this property and so on and so forth. Yeah. But it's not the only way to do it. So that's number one. Number two is technology, which quite frankly is the easier part, right? There's a very large number of even off-the-shelf tokenization platforms, softwares, etc., that you can utilize. The number of chains that are out there that want to get involved in this game and are willing to support is more than the current demand requires. Future demand for sure will satisfy it, I'm sure. Bottom line, technology is quite easy, right? Tribe has built its own largely with some third-party providers because we want that control. But that's not the case for all players. And lastly, obviously, you need to tokenizing the asset is just one part of it, right? There's no point in tokenizing an asset if there isn't a buy-side demand for it, right? This conversation often is like, oh, you tokenize this, I don't know, sneakers like we spoke about before, or a building or whatever it is, but if no one has an interest in actually acquiring those tokens, if there isn't an investor with the right thesis, if you will, for that, then why are you doing it, right? So for us, we tend to actually start on that side. That's where the conversation should start, right? Who is this for? Why are we doing this?
But again, so the first thing you will do, you will go and find who is the owner. Is it a single individual? Is it a company? Is it an SPV? And then you will create your own contract around this. The contract will have many, many tokens, and then you will put it in the open market for people to buy, or you will use your current client list you have to also introduce this kind of tokens, and then it will be a sort of an auction. How does the dynamics work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and again, there are more than one model here that we are looking at, and it depends on who's sitting on the asset owning side and what are their objectives, right? So if you think about a large asset manager, for example, that have a sophisticated internal capital raising team, for example, corporate finance team. They have old world TradFi structures where they go and raise capital against whatever assets they're either trying to acquire or sell, right? They have distribution channels that they work with that could be private banks, institutional backers, etc., etc. A lot of these guys, they will look at tokenization as a new structuring mechanism to run capital raising roadshows through, right? It's a product basically for them. In that instance, the tokenization partner, if you will, Tribe or anyone else, effectively becomes like an infrastructure partner, right? They don't have, and I mean not technically only, the full end-to-end suite, like regulatory posture, technology, etc., right? These guys, they don't have any need or an interest necessarily in building their own product stack or obtaining these licenses. They want to be able to offer tokenized assets as a product to their investors, right? In that instance, the operator of the platform and the technology, in this case Tribe, is simply a technological and regulatory service provider, if you will, to that side. If we look what's happened in this market historically in the last few years, both tokenized in the form of the pilot program last year. I know you had Joseph on, and these guys have done a great job with Pripco Mint, as well as the previous players, right? The crowdfunding players, your Stakes and your Smart Crowd. In that model, they own the asset origination, i.e. Tribe will go out, will find a property, whether that's a an apartment or a villa or even a building like the one we're in today, and they take the responsibility of raising the capital and the distribution and the buy side, right? That could be done in a number of ways, right? You could do through what a lot of these guys have done, which is simple direct-to-consumer marketing. You bring people onto the platform, KYC investors, and enable them to place investment checks fractionally onto these assets. So you list it, you run a fundraising exercise on the platform, basically. That is So
you're much more flexible there.
I would say that when people think about tokenization, real estate tokenization, and instantly their minds go to the crowdfunding model, right? Because that's what's happened in the past. And the first attempt at real estate tokenization here, which it's logical why it started there, is exactly the same model. We've just changed the underlying tech stack and the licenses used to do that, and bolted on some other sexy features like secondary market, right? Which didn't really exist in the crowdfunding model, but Prepcom did roll out a secondary market trading.
Yeah.
But as an ecosystem, we shouldn't confuse tokenization with that model only. Like there's a huge amount of use cases that can be built.
But you as a company, you're flexible for all of these models?
Correct.
So you can acquire yourself and list it. You can take it from an individual. You can take it from a company. You can take it from a very big fund. The other thing I wanted to ask you, what do you do about price discovery? Are you guys the reference price for a building? So you are the ones who will check, actually, I sold this at this price a year ago or X. And today the price is trading, and this is the real price where it's trading at. This will be you guys?
Yes, good question. So in the UAE, real estate valuation is a separately regulated exercise, right? So you need to be a VARA regulated valuer or surveyor to be able to do this.
Sorry, how is it called? You said VARA.
So RERA is the DOD's part of the federal government in Dubai. And the point is you need to have a license and you need to be certified. It's called RICS, RICS, to be able to go and say, here's the current value of this property based on, and there's a long list of parameters. So the federal government here are also for quite a long time working towards AI-powered or AI-executed smart valuation indices and so on and so forth. It will eventually be possible and legally viable to say, we pull all this data in and an AI can tell us this is the current price. So the answer is, operationally, tribes take responsibility for it, but the execution of it needs to be a separate entity because it's a regulated entity.
Third party verified.
Correct. Yes, correct. And the bigger the asset value is, the more important it is, right?
Yes.
Talk about 2 million dirham apartment in Dubai Marina. Plus minus 3% is not massive, and the retail investors may not be that, it might not be that important. If you're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of large scale commercial real estate, and where the buy side is banks, funds, private equity, etc. These guys have, analyst teams that go through every line item, and they will know this because they already buy these assets. And in that case, it's much more important to make sure that it's well structured as well.
May I then ask a question to continue on kind of the life cycle on the trade or buying a tokenized real estate? So let's say I have some cash, I send it from my bank account to a platform like yours. I receive it there, and let's say then I buy some fractionalized tokenized real estate. And let's say I hold it for a while and I'm very happy with the outcome, right? Perhaps, a third party verifier says the pricing has went up. So let's say I say, okay, I want to now sell, and then actually, let's say, withdraw my cash. How does then that secondary market process look like, right? So to whom do I sell? Do I sell it to you? Do I sell it to other players? How much size there is if I want to sell? Let's say I want to sell a whole building, maybe a bit more difficult than a small fraction. How does that process look like if I'm really thinking about the whole life cycle, even maybe then a completion of the investment? How do you manage that? Just to say, I think we're getting a masterclass today. We are going very strong with the questions. You're doing great.
Well, we're hoping we can actually deliver on all of this as well. Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
I'll be hung by my toes otherwise. A secondary market and liquidity is like the elephant in the room in tokenization generally, right? For us, it has 3 layers, right? The first one is structure, right? You need to be able to build the structure to enable it in the first place. And what are we actually enabling? We're enabling distribution. And people confuse distribution with actual liquidity, right? First of all, you need structure to enable the purchase and the sale and the purchase of secondary tokens in this instance, right? That this is the key difference, if we go back to the previous example, between the crowdfunding structures and the tokenization structures. Like, the crowdfunding structures, they simply don't have the legal and the technical capabilities to enable real-time secondary trading, right? Tokenized models, technically and regulatory, have that capability, right? The blockchain has that natively, effectively built into it almost. The second part is distribution. What do I mean by that? The amount of liquidity that can possibly fit within a 2 million dirham Dubai Marine apartment is 2 million dirhams, right? And the amount of hypothetical buyers that have an interest in sitting within that structure to buy when a secondary opportunity arises is very small, right? That's the truth. If you're talking about $1 billion large-scale asset, now you're talking about market-making institutional players, even high net worth qualified investors that are very interested in existing within the platform or that structure to go in and buy when the opportunity arises. What I'm saying is that for liquidity to ever exist, you need distribution, and what you need is depth, right? You need a lot of depth, and you need access to various types of future prospect buyers. That could be in real estate, the existing buyers, like the current investors that live in the TradFi mindset still, right? It could be us sitting here either buying using card or wire transfer through the Tribe platform. And then at some point, obviously, the point of bringing all these assets on chain is that we can start connecting these asset classes, in this case, real estate, with the cryptogen or DeFi native world, right? So that I can start buying in the primary and in the secondary market with other virtual assets. That's obviously one of the end goals. So 3 layers. Currently, like all of the other platforms today, Tribe is a primary, secondary. It's a private marketplace, meaning tokens cannot be traded into decentralized and centralized exchanges today. They are only traded on the Tribe platform. The structure and the distribution exist within our ecosystem, where we need to work to enable you, if you were to buy, for example, tokens and then try to sell them on the secondary market, is to increase the size and the depth of that distribution pool, because they are the ones who will bring the liquidity. It is peer-to-peer, is the primary method of selling, and we have a proprietary structure, if you will, a proprietary waterfall structure within the Tribe platform, which, depending on the asset, but simplified, you can try and sell your tokens to me, and if it doesn't, or all of the other platform users, if that doesn't work, there will be a form of let's call it like a liquidity backstop or some sort. There will be an option in some instances, depending on the token and the asset, to get out, perhaps at a slight discount. Yeah.
Okay. And who will be the market maker in this kind of situation? Will it be yourselves, or will it be a bank or another financial institution?
Yeah, good question. It could be both. So under the VARA rulebooks or the frameworks, you can act as what's called a principal trader, principal agent. I can't remember the terminology that they use today, where effectively Tribe can facilitate secondary trades within its own platform. In doing so, obviously taking on inventory risk, right? To then
line of credit from the bank in your situation.
Correct, right? So funds may come from somewhere else, but the actual trade is facilitated by Tribe. You can, again, within the rule books, you could technically, like you alluded to, you could have an external party, like a market maker in crypto, or even in the old TradFi structures, come in and act as that bottom liquidity pool for Tribe. And from a structure and a regulator perspective, that would just be another buyer, right? That sits on the bottom of the mopping that up.
Maybe then to ask you, because I mean, first, I think we covered so in detail the process of tokenization. I think that our audience will learn a lot.
And we still do not know who is our guest.
Yeah, we still we'll come to that. But I think maybe to ask you a question about comparison of the regulation and framework and the infrastructure in UAE and maybe a bit globally, right? Because we are sitting here in the UAE, in the region, we're very proud of it, and we many times even I'm fault of that. Many times I say UAE has the best regulatory framework for digital assets. But maybe,
shout out to VARA.
Shout out to our kind regulators, both in Abu Dhabi, Federal, in DIFC, in Dubai. But I wanted to ask you, from your expert perspective, how does the rest of the world compare when it comes to regulatory framework, infrastructure, and ecosystem when we are talking about tokenization? Is UAE really one of the leaders? Is there any other jurisdiction that you're very fond of what they're doing? Or is it actually still a kind of a level playing field? Like from your expert perspective, like how would you explain it to people?
Yeah, $1 million question.
Yeah,
I'll tread carefully on this one. So factually, I would say, and I think most people, if not everyone who has some knowledge about the space will agree with the Dubai Land Department and VARA together with the private operators last year that decided to pursue this pilot program. We have a lot to thank to them and for that program because it created a bit of a ripple effect. Effectively, I think what it did more than anything is it removed the psychological barrier within other ecosystems saying, this can be done, right? It's not that others haven't had the conversation about real estate tokenization has been going on for quite some time, right? They proved that it could be done in a way that hadn't been done anywhere elsewhere. So where does that put us today? Where does that lead the wider, the global ecosystem? I definitely don't have knowledge about every jurisdiction, but we've looked at many and we have firsthand interacted with many as well. Dubai, in terms of if you talk only about the virtual asset, for us, real estate or asset reference, virtual asset as VARA would call it, definitely the gold standard still, for sure at the forefront. The structures and the mechanisms that exist within the existing rulebooks today are, I would say, ahead of pretty much every other region that we have looked at, right? The other regulators in this country, and we are an ADGM holding company actually, so obviously we've looked at those, and they are great, but they are different. And why are they different? The thing that a lot of people forget about real estate is that we're not virtual only, a virtual asset, technically free zone, as we would call it here only. We're also onshore, right? Yeah. Real estate is an onshore legal structure, and we have to satisfy those requirements, and we have to consider those. What does local property law say in the Emirates specific or country specific? So you might have the best virtual asset regulator in the world, but if the onshore real estate legislation can't support what you're trying to do, you're going to fall on that hurdle instead. Other countries that are moving or doing something, or whether it's good or mature or not, Saudi obviously has taken leaps to move very quickly. Very little on the surface of things have been operationalized, but there is technology. We had Adam from Settlement on our podcast about a week or 2 weeks ago. They were at the very center of that pilot program over there with the Riga sandbox. They've done stuff over there. They're moving. There's a second cohort of sandbox coming in. We know it, and they have an intent and an appetite. I haven't personally read all of the rule books. I'm not sure they're all public, and if they were, they would be in Arabic, and I speak clearly zero Arabic. So Qatar has a deep intent. We are already in the QFC innovation, so they have a sandbox effectively. So they're about a year and a half, I would say, probably behind the UAE.
In the UAE, you were in the sandbox first, or no?
No, only Prep Government was doing the first pilot. There will be some announcements in the next month or so about the last part of this pilot program, as they would have called it, where one or perhaps more participants will do some activations in that. But I think ultimately the goal here for the government is trying to move beyond this and into real full operational mode as soon as possible, right? That is the goal in Dubai. Abu Dhabi, ADREC, they have a slightly different path, all the Emirates. I've also interacted a lot with Malaysia, Indonesia, the UK, the Bank of England. Actually, just earlier this year, introduced a new sandbox type environment. Indonesia have one, sandbox for real estate tokenization. They also have a handshake agreement with VARA, actually, to take an inspiration from VARA. We know a number of African countries that are deeply looking at this and working with...
Which market would you say is the biggest in terms of real estate tokenization? Which country is leading this in terms of demand and supply?
Oh, for sure, Dubai.
Dubai.
100%. Yeah. I mean, in our experience, again, we, I'm sure there's a big...
That's good to hear.
Yeah. In terms of numbers, it's North America still, but they have a very different structure, right? If you look at the large projects that have been done with it, they're all securities. Like the way that their structure is securities. There's hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate that's been securitized in those structures over there, but not in the way it's here. And I think when the wider GCC, and for me that would be here, Saudi and Qatar, when they all operationalize, given the size and the appetite for real estate as an asset class here, I mean, people love real estate here, is going to frog leap the rest of the world, for sure, for a period of time. Definitely, I'm very bullish, and obviously we want to participate and contribute to that.
We had a great conversation about Tribe, learned a lot. We ventured into regulation. Then we had a masterclass from you in terms of what tokenization means. Demetrios kindly, told me, but we need to give the opportunity also to you to say who you are, where you come from, how did you come to the UAE?
Yeah.
I mean, we had a bit of a discussion around that, and so maybe I will want to ask you like a first question that you asked me when we had the
payback time.
No, it's not payback actually. So we had a fireside chat which you were moderating, but you were kind enough to send me questions up front, which we don't usually do. We are very spontaneous.
We never send the questions.
We are very spontaneous. I think our audience will.
We do not know the questions ourselves.
Yeah, we always kind of come up with the right way and hopefully a good experience. So if you would have to explain in one sentence, who you are, what motivates you, what drives you personally, right?
Yeah.
How would you say who Sebastian is?
Yeah, in a professional capacity, the answer is through and through venture builder is the only thing I've ever done. Why? Simply because I love taking on and solving unstructured problems. So basically problems that haven't been solved before. It's what drives me. The building from ground up and adding that value is really what genuinely makes me happy, right? I quite literally spent 3 hours with IBM about 14 years ago. I kid you not, I used to live in Australia, in Sydney, where I did my schooling. I flew from Sydney to London, where I was going to relocate back to Europe. Was going to be part of this management program for this incredible large-scale organization. And my parents were so proud. He got hired, blah, blah, blah. Walk in, do the first 3 hours. I'm like, this is definitely not for me. I mean, I'm going to be miserable doing this. So I just decided, you know what? Screw it. Pardon my French. I walk out, call my dad. I'm Swedish, so I call my dad in Sweden, say, that flight ticket that you booked for me so I could come back? And can you book me another one back to Australia? Because this is horrible. I'm going to spend the weekend in London, hitting some pubs and then I'm going back. And he was like, what do you mean? This is not for me. So after that, I went straight into, as an employee of sort of startups in the UK or in London back then in 2013, 14. By trial and error, I realized this is for me. This is what I want to do, and I honestly don't think I will ever stop. I might change the capacity.
You started from finance, or you started from different fields?
So my educational background was a combination of business, like a business administration, and I also have a background in hotel management, actually, which I never worked in, but I studied and I did sommelier, and I worked for Michelin star restaurants, and I worked for Park Hyatt at sort of some of the best hotels in the world during my university years. But realized what I love is staying in hotels, not working in hotels. So, park that. And then from there on, I went into, I did sort of two, 3 different early stage in London, which were all marketplace businesses, sort of Web 2 marketplace business of some kind. One was in hospitality, and the other one was in two of them were in travel technology before I moved into sort of deep tech, AI, Web3 and all that, which is about 6 years ago now.
That's
fine.
Amazing story.
And how did I get here? I was very lucky to be part of a very large travel tech, entertainment, experience tech company. Which I'm not sure if I should mention or not, but
they will Google it.
It's a huge company, and the 2 original founders of this company were instrumental in my journey of becoming who I am as a person, because of the way that they think, honestly, and the way that they operate this company. Today, I think they're probably the 2nd largest in the world, so it's a very big company. They've done exceptionally well, but it's been a journey that's been going on since 2014. and they're still privately run, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, with this company, they're operational in the UAE plus maybe 100 other countries. So I started spending a lot of time in and out of Dubai back in 2000 and I would say 17 or 18 maybe, something like that, for business. So I started building friendships here and whatnot. And at one point, a very good friend of mine, Swedish friend, we were texting and he was like, I haven't seen you in a long time. When are you coming back? I was like, well, I'll come next week. I'll see you. And the day I landed, the day I arrived, I sat with him and we were talking. He looked at me sort of across the table and he's like, this time you're going to get stuck. I can feel it. It's like, no, of course not. And, here we are almost 6 years later. So strong. Yeah, it was very random. But honestly, you said before, I'm extremely grateful to be here. I mean, it's an incredible region to be building and operating and living in, right?
Yes.
I love it here. It's a little bit hot right now in June, but other than that, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world right now.
First, really great story, and thanks for sharing that. And you kind of explained what were the drivers, the really key moments to get you here. What does the future look like for Sebastian? Personally, I'm just asking personally.
Personally, I would say Tribe and my life is very extremely intertwined right now. We're a 13-month-year-old-ish, almost 14-month-year-old company. So naturally, a very large portion of my life is Tribe. This is why I'm here. As much as I would like to think you would have to have Sebastian on the podcast, I'm sure if Tribe wasn't in the picture, maybe I wouldn't be here, right? So I spend a lot of time.
And we always get the young, ambitious.
Yeah, we would get you here.
He called me young. You heard?
And ambitious.
So obviously a large focus of our collective lives now within Tribe is Tribe.
How big is Tribe?
It's small. We are 10 full-time. Plus a number of advisors, sort of part-time consulting type capacities. I think all in all, there's probably around 20 people that have some degree of active contribution and participation in one or operational way or another, right? Plus, obviously, investors and shareholders and whatnot. And I don't foresee us really ever becoming huge in terms of manpower.
Yeah.
We had the incredible benefit of building Tribe on the back end of the latest extreme AI evolution wave, right? So as an operating system, Tribe is AI built at its core, right? Every person has a centralized shared stack that we built a company on, where everything is accessible and visible across all departments. And what it does is that it superpowers every person in terms of their output levels, right? They're able to take on the reason I can say this with utmost confidence is that we actually implemented this about 6 months into Tribe's journey. So we have firsthand data, if you will, of the before and after, and it's not comparable. It's incredible. So a huge amount of our workload is taken care of by AI powered, but always.
What's your favorite? Is it Claude? Is it ChatGPT?
At the moment, as an OS, it's Claude for sure. We have other systems that we work with. So the marketing team, for example, and the content team have their own, side agents that they work with for specific use cases, like you mentioned earlier, that are stronger at Higgsfield, for example, which is great video content, right? Which I know nothing about. I'm on a podcast, but I'm not a content person.
Maybe that's a multi-agent.
Okay.
So yeah, very, very, very useful for sure. But Anton, to your question. So Tribe, number one. Number two, I would say getting to the point in life where without the idea of you're not a young single man anymore. Honestly, it's time for the next stage of life, right? It's not on my doorstep, but it's definitely here and here. Transparently, I'm ready for that stage. So I'm sure over the next 5 years that will happen at some point. I'm talking about, life partners, families, children, these things. Everyone in Tribe, that's not true. Most people at Tribe are family men, right? So we're not a young company by age. Everyone is slightly older. We have basically no one in their 20s in our company. Everyone is in their 30s, 40s. Multiple children. I mean, we have more children within the Tribe founding and team than we have Tribe employees. So all of them have sort of 2, 3, 4 children, which is amazing. From the 6 months or even less than that, 2 months ages to the 15-year-old. So yeah, I'm one of the ones that doesn't. So I gotta add to the tribe.
I have a question for you, because now my firm is trying to also do an offsite, and since you're in tribe, who is better to ask that than someone who believes in these tribe ideas? How would you imagine if you were doing an offsite for your team? How will it be? Will you go in a hotel? Will you go in a resort? Would you go in a foreign destination? How would you do it? Would you do an extreme sport?
I love that question. So in our previous business, we did this. And in the large scale company I talked about, this is one of the things that they got right from the very early days. They did it exceptionally well. So I've stolen some of these ideas as opposed to come up with them myself.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, great. You know, sharing is caring. Firstly, I would say it's extremely important for me for 2 reasons. To do these things, I mean, it's extremely important. The first thing is the kind of organic interactions you get to have with your colleagues, and if you call them friends as well, outside of the day-to-day, office environment or working environment, are so different than the ones you have on a Tuesday over a coffee, right? People lower their barriers quite a lot when you move into a different environment. So my first point would be external environment for sure. I don't know if your teams are localized only here or in multiple countries, but what we found and what I have experienced on more than one occasion firsthand is that we tried to do like a cost saving structure in the beginning, where we said, we have teams in say 5 cities. So let's pick one of those 5 and we will take the teams from 4, we'll bring them into the 5th and we do something there, because then we don't have to pay them. That was a very bad idea because the 5th team gets stuck in their day-to-day routines and their day-to-day work and the day-to-day meetings because they are in their native environment, right? So my answer would be offsite in a location that is none of the team's location. That's how people switch off. And I think the final thing that worked well for us, I don't really have a comment on venue type. I think that depends on how big the team is and what. What really worked well is a combination of like some structured time, right? With goals, like why are we doing this, right? And exactly the opposite, which is here is 1 day, 2 days, 5 days, however much time and money the business can afford. Do whatever you want, right? Figure it out for yourself. So if you guys want to go play volleyball or you want to go to the bar, have a drink or whatever you want to do, you go do it. You form your own groups and just organically figure it out. That's when the best conversations tend to happen. So yeah, I do it. I love these things. We can't wait to do it with Tribe, to be honest. It's hard
to do one with Tribe or not yet?
We haven't yet. We do have we have team members in North America because our previous business had a similar setup. We have met them before. Obviously, they've been over multiple times, and some of us have been over. One of our team members here is actually in North America with the product design team at the moment. One of our marketing people is over there to do some collaboration. But I would love to be able to do that before the end of 2026, and likely bring them in here and spend some serious quality time together.
I think this was a great episode. Learned a lot. Also, I think we got to know you personally a lot better. That's how I feel. And maybe for me, just one of the last questions is, I'm sure a lot of people in the audience are watching you, listening to you, and they're curious. They want to learn more. They want to work with you. They want to invest with you or be part of the platform.
Some young people might want to work for you.
Might work for you as well.
Like the ratios now.
Yeah, actually too, exactly.
Doors open.
How do people get in touch with you? What's the best way? Where do they find you? What are the plans? How to get in touch with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say a great starting point is LinkedIn. We're, as me personally, and also the brand. If it's me personally, just feel free to connect on LinkedIn, send a message. I'm very responsive. If it's Tribe as a brand, the amount of entry points we have is plenty, right? The business is very active on a number of social platforms. You could reach out on any of them, whether it's messaging or commenting, you will get response. But me, straight away, go to LinkedIn, you'll find me there, and let's have a coffee or chat.
Have you scheduled any of the conferences for these years? Do you know where you're going?
Yeah, that's a great question. We had originally, with everything that happened in the first half of this year, we kind of pressed the reset button a little bit and say we need to hold off and figure out where does this all go and what does it mean for us. So it was it was a tricky experience for most, I would say, in various ways. As an early stage company, it's very tricky to navigate. We were planning on hosting our own, in fact. So
Never seen it.
It's coming. We still have it in the books. We were planning on tagging something onto token 2049 here, something really big, in fact. Luckily, we were able to defer that, and we'll do it maybe next year. I would, at the moment, our focus is really on operationalizing the business here as well as in Qatar, because we are entering into the sandbox there as of this month. We're launching in that sandbox.
Congratulations, super nice.
Thank you. So yeah, you watch that space. The summer for us is running our test and making sure we go to market. Yeah.
We expect those invites to your event.
Yes.
But otherwise, great show. Was great to talk.
You can send the invite.
I was just waiting when Sebastian will say, by the way, you two both are invited, but I'm sure
100%.
Yeah.
We'll bring you on stage and have a chat in front of a live audience instead. Yeah.
Yes. I hope you have a fireside chat with Seb. You are amazing, actually. You are.
So we will see what we will get.
What we can do. What we can do.
That's coming. Yeah, it's coming.
Awesome, Sebastian.
Amazing.
Great stuff. It was great to have you. Learned a lot. Wishing you all the best of success in your journey.
Thank you.
And hopefully we are, continuing with these friendships, with these relationships. And it was a blast, Demetrios, I think, as well. It was really awesome.
Amazing to have someone young, energetic, semi-spiritual, I would say.
Yes.
And ambitious. Ambitious is the word of the day, I think.
Strong.
Amazing.
Thank you.
I'll
Thank
take
you
that.
very much.
Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. And that was it for today. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Subscribe and follow for more episodes. This was it, and have a blast and see you soon.